You didn't say start recording.
I'm
You
sorry.
usually do the countdown.
That was the 3, 2, 1, and now we are recording.
It's just not.
That was my bad. We have a bad
Look,
way of
look.
communicating with each other.
Now, in defense, it's been a while.
It has
It's been a while.
I was gonna say it's been more weird since November.
It's been more than a week.
It's been more than a week. It's been quite a long time. We've had both of our birthdays pass.
Yeah,
And
we're 30 now.
yeah. I don't like that number. I'm just gonna shake that off.
You know what's weird about it for me is I'm more comfortable with 30 than I was 29.
Why is that?
I felt like 29 was just a countdown to 30. You know, like it was just a whole year of dread.
Yeah. Well, these last couple of years, it doesn't help, being in a bad number.
But now that I've hit 30, it's like, oh, one, it's nice and even. And I like even numbers. They make me feel good.
1, 2, 3.
And
One,
not only is it an even number, it's got a 0 at the end, so it's like a literally round even. You know,
I need to take you to Las Vegas, sir. You are absolutely neurotic.
oh yeah, that's not news.
As long as I get to be Tom Cruise in this scenario, so
it's like now what do I have to look forward to? Like 30s, like content 30s up to 40s, which ideally, well, my entire life will have fallen into place by then, right? So
sure. Either into place or all apart, you know
yeah,
what I mean?
yeah.
Everyone okay, fine. No,
either end of the spectrum.
It's true. It's true. It's either gonna it's either gonna work to.
It's all gonna work out, or not.
Or not. Just oh, how I miss this. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Lights, Camera, Nonsense, where we give you all the latest movie magic you may have missed, and oh, how we have missed you. I am Nick. Review Askew Simmons. I just pulled that out of my ass.
And I'm Zach in a Box Smith.
Zach in a Box. And on Saturday, January 9th, 2022, Zach. 2022.
Oh my gosh.
Speaking of even round numbers, I guess there's a 0 in there. I'll count that as the round.
Yeah,
round in the middle, just like us.
I don't get a good feeling from 2022 like I do from 30.
Well, it's because it's so close to 2021, the number, and 2020, the number.
Exactly.
On Saturday. No, that's actually Sunday, January 9th. Sunday, January 9th, 2022. Let's roll into the previews. You can help support this podcast just by simply clicking subscribe or follow us on whatever social media platform you are watching us on. Right now, we have paused Patreon just while we get the ball rolling with this podcast again and get our content going again. So just for the time being, while we are working everything out, while we're getting back into the groove of things, just, stick around wherever you are watching us or consuming our content.
Let's just get our groove on.
Exactly. And if you feel like you missed out on any of our previous content and you want to catch up, even though you don't have to, it's kind of interesting. It's not like there's an overarching story. Trust me. It's all nonsense. Just head on over to Lights, Camera, Nonsense at lightscameranonsense.com. And we are just about everywhere. We're on iTunes, Spotify, Podcast Addict. We're on Last.fm. We're on YouTube if you're watching us on YouTube with the video form. Or, I don't know, maybe we're on a porn site somewhere. I don't want to...
Probably.
I didn't upload us on a porn website. I don't even know why people would upload this on a porn website, but there you go. We're also on TikTok.
Hold on.
What?
Hold on. I could. Let me workshop this Pornhub title.
Oh. Okay.
Two dudes have a mouthful.
No. No, and I'm not naming this episode that either. As much as you want that. Enough of all of this nonsense, Zach. How was the end of your 2021? Because we have not recorded in quite a few months. We had to take a little sabbatical there.
Yeah. We took a break just because we both had our own stuff kind of going on, and some of us may have broken some microphones, which have
You want to
been
explain that? I feel like we need the story. We need the story time. So what happened?
so. So my setup is all the same. It's all stuffed into like my desk is not small, I wouldn't say, but it's got two monitors and my tower's on,
Mm-hmm.
plus my keyboard. And what happens when I'm usually recording like we are now is I push my keyboard back, so my whole entire front here is my mic setup and whatnot.
Right.
When it's not like that, the mic is usually sitting off into the corner next to the tower. What happened with my previous mic was it was kind of this weird, not weird, it was a mess. It was a mess of wires, tangles, and whatnot. So my headset was kind of like wired around it. So when
Yeah.
went to go put my headset on back on during a game session, god damn, I'm gonna take my ring off because I know this mic will pick that up like a motherfucker.
Oh.
Um, uh, I went to go put my headset back on during a game sesh, and when I pulled the headset, it pulled the mic, fell directly down onto the ground with the headset still plugged in, completely ruined the headset jack, and because it had been pulled from the tower. I'm lucky that my USB port isn't fucked. Because the mic is just all sorts of just non it's not
Non-salvageable.
salvageable.
Yeah.
So that is why when we did the episode talking about going on a break, my audio sounds like I'm in like a deep dark hole because it's just the audio from the
So we're gonna take a
webcam.
little bit of a break, and we're gonna
Exactly.
we're
It's
gonna
because
get this out.
it's the mic from the webcam.
Yeah.
But now I have a new mic, which is probably why I sound a little different. This one will not be staying over there. I will find a actual place to keep the microphone that is not in danger of being tossed to the ground
And
unceremoniously.
when you told me this story, it made me immediately like aware of how fragile my kind of setup is, because it's a super simple setup. It's just about the same as yours. The mic I have right now is kind of like the jack is in the back, so anytime I have the microphone facing
Mm,
me, the cords kind of like wrap around
yeah.
the side of it kind of in a way to where it's never going to be like flushed where it's just like falling down. I mean, I could have it set up that way, but I need a longer cord. That's just something I need to invest in. But it's right now it's precarious at best. I even have like a headphone like hook on the bottom part of
Yeah.
the desk, so I can just put my headphones there so it doesn't fall on the ground. Because I used to just put them on the desk and leave them as is. But I have a cat who loves to just walk around. He's not deliberately trying to knock things off of my desk, but he will just walk by and his tail manages to snag something, and of course something falls over, and it's when I'm at work, you know. So worst case scenario is that. Best case
Yeah.
scenario is that nothing happens, but you know
That would be the best case
best
scenario,
case
yes.
scenario is that nothing happens.
Plan for the worst now, though.
Yeah.
Is what I'm operating under.
But you sound better and you look better, Zach. You look like
Oh
you.
yeah, that's because of the mic.
Oh, there you go.
The mic makes you look better.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. We okay. So we also managed to take a break in one of the busiest times of the year when it comes to
Mm,
movies and TV shows. A lot of great content, which we will be going over with this episode. Just recapping the whole year of 2021. Although I
yeah.
didn't put a lot of the uh, award winners that were obviously at the Oscars at the beginning of 2021
Mm.
because I felt like they were already recognized and we had already talked about them at length.
I do have
Um,
a couple of those on mine, but I just put them down just so we
yeah,
have them for
but
reference.
that's okay. We'll probably talk about Judah and the Black Messiah or
Oh
No
yeah,
Country for
hell
Old Men,
yeah.
So, um, with all that being said, Zach, are you ready to jump into it?
Let's jump right on in
Awesome.
into the pool that hasn't been cleaned for a minute.
It's a little green. It's a little green. It's got that filmy like layer of
Yeah.
green of moss and everything.
I don't know if you know this, but there's a chlorine shortage right now.
I did not know this. I don't have a
Yeah.
pool, so
My previous job,
pool
I
boy.
worked with getting no, not pool boy. I worked in capacity that had me ordering pool supplies for
Right.
certain areas. So it's been a hell of a last couple years because I guess when the first lockdown hit,
Mm.
everybody was like, "Time to get a pool."
Yeah.
Everybody
With all
could
that stimulus
afford a
checks.
pool anyway.
Yeah, exactly.
So now they've been hit by supply chain issues on top of like huge demand, and it's just like it's a mess. So, in our defense, the reason our pool is dirty and green is because we can't get the materials to clean it.
Right. Let's just go ahead and excuse all the fancy pants that decided to buy a pool instead of all of the things that they needed with all that stimulus
Exactly.
money, you know. Although I have no room to talk because I use that to, buy video games. So anyway,
Video games, pool.
I got way more enjoyment out of, being I'm one of those personality types where I can be in my apartment all weekend and be totally happy, or just as
Yeah,
happy as if I had gone out to go do something.
same.
You know,
Go figure.
sad. It's sad. Now,
Oh,
let's
it's very sad.
let's dive into the movies. So we both kind of approached this in a different way. You kind of wanted to highlight some of the movies that came out this year, and I kind of did a top. I feel like we did this last year too. I did like a top 10 list, or like a
I have like a bit of a top five
yeah,
just by virtue of going back through everything I watched over the year.
yeah.
Um, but yeah, I mean, I have literally everything I watched on the list.
Fair enough.
Um, which going into it, I was like, man, I don't think I watched all that much, and I actually watched a fair bit. I think the difference is I definitely didn't watch as much as you. That's for sure.
Yeah.
For me, a big issue, especially at the end of the year, is that so many movies were theater release only. Like
Hmm.
I still have not seen Spider Man.
Yeah.
I have not been spoiled. Fingers crossed.
I don't understand how, because not
Uh,
only you, but D, co-host of Barely Playing, also hasn't seen it, and also hasn't been spoiled, and I don't understand how the internet has not ruined that for you.
I think I mean I'm probably putting too much emphasis on this, so like I'm obviously gonna get spoiled within like the next 60 minutes. Um, get a notification on my phone through Twitter or some shit,
Because
or
Google's
you're just
always
gonna
listening.
tell me.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
no, no, I'm not gonna say anything. I'm not gonna say anything.
Uh, but yeah, I don't know if maybe if people are just being really careful this go around, or if I'm just picking the right time to jump on Twitter or something. But yeah, I mean, I haven't. I've just if there's been a Spider-Man thing, I just scrolled past it, but I haven't like been actively off the internet for a month. So
That's fair. So that's probably gonna be one that we talk about because it's definitely on my one of my lists here. Let's. I want to go ahead and start off by mentioning a movie um, that came out and we talked about on the podcast, and there's going to be quite a few that we never talked about because
yeah.
again we missed a huge chunk of the year. But this came out early in the year, and it's called Barb and Star Go to Vista Del Mar. And
Yeah, so I remember you mentioning this when it came out. It came out kind of in a weird, heavy season, or it was awards season, I think.
yeah, it was around March, and I actually
Um,
didn't see it until it was already on Hulu. So let's see. But
uh,
it's weird because it's got that like bridesmaids kind of humor where it's like just you're gonna be nonstop laughing if that's your kind of humor, or you're just not gonna enjoy it at all because it's kind of that
Polarizer,
yeah, you're following these losers, not losers, that seems mean. You're following these so
degenerates,
here's the synopsis. Lifelong friends
filthy,
Barb and Star
filthy people.
embark on the adventure of a lifetime when they decide to leave their small Midwestern town for the first time ever. And it's, Kristen Wiig, it's Annie Mumolo. They both featured in Bridesmaids, obviously. Jamie Dornan shows up and he has a musical number, which is fucking fantastic.
Wow, that's
Um,
actually surprising. If you told said Jamie Dornan, the first thing that pops into my mind is not good at musical numbers.
Well, okay, I'm not saying he's a Grammy award-winning singer, but his
It's
song,
pleasant. It's a pleasant
it's
performance.
hilarious is what it is. It's a very funny soundtrack. There's a song on the soundtrack called I Like Boobies, done by Richard Cheese, who I'm not sure if you're familiar with. We're getting away from the movie. Fantastic soundtrack, hilarious movie, um, cheesy kind of beat movie. You're gonna have fun watching it if you're a fan of Kristen Wiig. But I'll hand that off to you. What's one of your movies that you watched?
Yeah, I mean, if we're talking about early movies, I mean, bar now, I think maybe it's maybe a bit of a spoiler for down the line if we talk about our favorites of the year. But Judas and the Black Messiah,
Mm,
as you mentioned, it was just that I think was such a powerhouse early on in the year. Um, Going through my lists of what I had watched, I don't think I had watched anything else that had the weight, the gravitas behind it that it did, as well as just the acting chops. I mean, literally every single person, specific and obviously specifically Lakeith Stanfield and Daniel Kaluuya,
mm,
uh, are just fucking amazing in that movie. They are. It is a shining light in how talented they both are and how lucky uh, that we get to be able to see them in such, you know, and I'll call it a big movie, but you know it wasn't a big movie in the sense of like Kong versus Godzilla or Godzilla versus, I can never remember which one goes first.
Godzilla versus Kong.
Uh,
Yeah.
um,
Rolls off the
it's
tongue.
not like it's obviously not a blockbuster, right? It's not like action packed, big hit, but in terms of quote unquote prestige film, it I don't think there was anything else that affected me as heavily as that did. Just by virtue of being spectacular quality in every sense, and that's before even getting into the subject matter of the movie itself. Yeah, just phenomenal way to start the year for me. As well as we had kind of talked about this beforehand when we were kind of feeling out what we wanted to do with this, and you had kind of mentioned not wanting to include some of the award winners because some of them had come out in technically December.
Yeah, in limited release, kind of. But I mean,
And one of those for me was Minari.
yeah,
It was a limited release at the end of the previous year,
right,
but
yeah.
it wasn't widely available until the beginning of the year.
Mm,
And that again, much like Judas was, just spectacular acting all around. So much heart in that. Um, and it was at the start, and I feel like a lot of the times, because studios will save on to their big movies until either the summer or even the holiday, the latter half of the year with November and your December release schedule.
right.
A lot of the big talked about movies, those tend to, in the discussion of like big movies of the year, the ones at the end are generally the ones people remember more because hey, they're more recent.
Right.
Um, and I feel like in regards to Minari and Judas and the Black Messiah, both of those for me, just nothing has hit those levels for the rest of the year, which sounds kind of sad if you think about it.
Wow.
Not to say that I didn't enjoy anything else throughout the year. I just like, for me, that was the top quality for the
Well,
year.
yeah. And it's the reason I brought up earlier that I didn't want to talk about those is because it feels slightly not cheating in a way, but it feels like it's obviously that recency bias that the Academy and the studios are trying to capitalize on with
Right.
those movies and the late releases bleeding into the wide releases of January next year. I mean, we're talking about like we're in the middle of January right now of
Mm,
2022, releasing this episode reviewing 2021, and I know that there are movies that I kind of already want to talk about that came out in January this year
yeah.
that I'll talk about, at the end of this year,
Yeah.
2022. So I mean, it's kind of weird because the movies never stop. Movies never stop.
No, they do not stop. They're not like, okay, that's a wrap for the year. Everybody get your reactions or
I mean,
your rankings in, and
especially with a lot of the movies that we'll talk about being released exclusively on digital platforms only. Um, just recently, Disney announced that Turning Red is going to be streamed only
Mhm.
on Disney Plus on March 11th, I believe.
Yeah,
And
yeah. Did I didn't see it. Is that the Disney Premium?
that's
The
no, it's just because it's a
it's
Pixar
just
movie. It's just
I
for
wonder
uh,
legit, and we might talk about it as we go down. But Encanto just came out recently, and
yeah.
I wonder if that decision is heavily based on the response to that movie, because the response to Encanto, I feel like, at least in my Twitter sphere, as it were, those are all subjective because you're just following people who say the same
The
outlook
same
as
people
you.
who, for some reason, don't spoil Spider-Man, one of the biggest movies
Yeah.
of last year. That technically counts as a last year movie.
Yep,
Yeah,
absolutely.
that's just insane to
Um,
me because time is a fucking uh, volleyball.
I would just be curious to see what their split is, because obviously the digital market for a children's movie is much heavier
Right.
than, say, like a family of two or a single
They
movie ticket
they had
purchaser.
every opportunity to release Encanto in the premium access
Hmm.
service, but they chose not to because they wanted to show that movie to as many people as possible during the holiday season because they knew people were going to watch it anyway. Dropping Turning Red in March on just Disney Plus with no premium access buffer, I guess, kind of in a way. I mean, to
Yeah.
help
Yeah, for sure.
push in more money for that movie to be more successful. I mean, it definitely feels like they're just kind of dropping it. Like they feel like it's not going to be as successful in theaters, so they're just going to slap it onto their Disney Plus service. But we're talking about a movie that's coming out in
It's not
2022,
even
Zach.
out. It's not even
You son of a
out.
bitch. That's probably going to happen again. I'm just saying that now. Zach, I wanted to talk about The Harder They Fall, which came out on
Okay.
Netflix. And I want to make sure that I get the director right because it was a phenomenal Western movie that just came out of the blue for me. We actually were kind of aware of it, and it's James Samuel, who also did another Western that came out a few years ago called They Die by Dawn, and it followed a not similar premise, but a similar like style to it. And it's almost I think I texted you this, but it felt like a Tarantino movie without all of the weird Tarantinoisms. Because
Yeah.
it had a definite visual flair to it. It had a sort of classic spaghetti western 70s feel to it, but also
Yes.
uh it brought a lot of like modern nuance to it with the soundtrack being a very modern urban soundtrack and the cast being 99% African American. It's I thought it was a kind of weird breath of fresh air because it was not something that I was expecting from a movie I really had no expectations for. Um,
Well, and straight up, westerns are not in vogue anymore.
no,
And if you go back into the history of film, there was a time period where pretty much if you were going to make money on a movie, it was going to be a western. It's just western, western, western. If not that, then musical slash dance
yeah,
film.
big band
Um,
films. This
but after a
2021.
while, westerns kind of fell out, and there wasn't a big audience for them, or so studios believed. Um, so now when you get these ones that, as you said, and you can see this I haven't watched the movie, but you can definitely get the feeling that you're talking about from the trailer, where this has a very classic western feel to it.
Yeah,
You can feel it in its bones. Uh, with obviously twists thrown in there to modernize it, past your kind of John Wayne, Clint Eastwood style westerns.
There were a lot of great westerns that came out last year. This Power of the Dog, a lot of these getting um, a lot of critic recognition as well. There was another film with Tim Blake Nelson. I'm trying to remember that also came out this year. Sleep in my pants. Old Henry, which also came out, and that's just about Tim Blake Nelson, defending his home from like bandits and stuff. And it's kind of getting a resurgence, which I feel like happens with nearly every kind of genre of film.
It's all cyclical. Yeah.
Yeah, but I personally thought that The Harder They Fall is definitely up there with films that you should definitely check out. It's should still be on Netflix.
Nice. Is the other you mentioned
They
his
Die by Dawn is not.
Yeah,
It's
not okay.
No.
So I have to kind of dig around for that one. We were talking about exclusive digital movies there, but also especially at the end of the year, like I mentioned, big resurgence of exclusive theater movies. The only one, the only one that I've seen is Green Knight.
Yeah.
So, which some people will have issues with, but I am glad at the very least that if I saw one, I'm glad there's two ways to look at it, right? Like, I feel like this is a movie that you could definitely appreciate all of its nooks and crannies just from the comfort of your own home.
Yeah.
And it's so detail oriented. You can definitely appreciate the everything about the movie from the comfort of your own. I am glad, however, to have given. It sounds weird to say, but give money to the movie, just with it being more of a niche movie. Because I'm not that. I'm not surprised to know that Spider-Man is making bank at the movies. Do I think it would be a better experience than watching it in my own home theater? Yeah, of course. I don't have a huge fucking screen and speakers on like
and
every
kind of the audience
participation
to it, as well. You get you get that sense of like how everyone's like just really excited to be watching this movie for the first time. I literally saw it that Thursday night midnight premiere, and the energy in that movie theater was palpable. So
I'm sure, yeah.
I mean, when we saw The Green Knight, because we saw it together, that was the last time I saw you in person, and I'm pretty sure you were replaced by a replicant. But when we saw The Green Knight, it was packed because it was in
packed. Yeah,
it was in that weird time when everyone was kind of getting back into the groove of the like everything's going back to normal when it really wasn't. And so, for independent A24 fantasy film, it seemed odd to us that it was packed.
Yeah, that was definitely the worst part of the experience was the people around us at the time, which I've already talked about, so I won't go too far into. But I think a lot of that probably had to do with the fact that people were just wanting to get out at that point. Mm-hmm. So they were just kind of picking any movie. And also, we kind of mentioned it previously when we talked about The Green Knight. The marketing for that movie is just a straight lie.
It's completely different, yeah. It's hard because A24 doesn't specialize in that kind of like fantasy adventure film. And while like it's way more closer towards the actual film is way more closer towards A24's actual bread and butter, which is like independent horror and independent
and slow, methodical.
It was
very slow and very methodical.
I will admit that, and I'm pretty sure I covered it again when we talked about it, but I was definitely tired. I nodded off at one point in the movie theater, and I normally do not do that.
This is the Green Knight was definitely a movie where a family has to convince their 45-year-old father to go see, like, because he doesn't want to go to movies ever.
Right.
But this is like the one that he's been interested in seeing in like years. So they go to see it because of the trailers. Oh, cool! It's medieval, and it's I recognize the title, The Green Knight. That's that's a story,
Do
you
you
know.
know? Okay. Do you
And then he
actually know a
falls
lot of
asleep
people?
in it.
I was gonna say, do you know a lot of people who know the story of Gawain
No,
the Green
no,
Knight?
not in the sense of like they know the actual text, but
Right.
I think it's pretty well known. Like if you say the Green Knight, I think a lot of people know. Like, oh, yeah, I think that's like an old narrative thing, you know.
People like before 2007 didn't know who Iron Man was. Like,
That's different.
is it? Is it because he's? I mean, even compared to like today, Iron Man is significantly more well known than the Green Knight.
Yeah,
I
but
could go ask my roommate right now about the Green Knight film, and he's like, "What film are you talking about? I don't even know what that story is."
well, I'm just saying, like I can imagine a scenario where someone has heard in passing someone reference the story
Hmm.
in school or whatever, and then years later they Green Knight and like, oh yeah, I've heard. Is that a thing or something?
About the tree guy and the guy
That
from
tree guy
Slumdog
looks cool
Millionaire,
though. There's swords in that. I want to go see that, and then they get in. And
talking fox and giants and
I'm really
mermaids.
harping on the slowness of it, which I don't want to get.
It's a
I
good
don't want to.
movie. Like we
It
both
is a
agree,
very
it's a
good
good movie.
movie, and again, it's something we talked about before. You will either love it or hate it,
Mm,
or at least you'll fall on what you'll trend towards one end of the spectrum over the other. There is no middle
right.
ground. It's it is a movie that you appreciate the artists behind it, and the attention to detail, and just kind of the general feel of it. More of like I'm gonna go and get some Lord of the Rings type entertainment.
Nope. Yeah, fantasy took a definite big hit for me when it comes to movies, at least this year. Not a lot of them, even the ones that you could consider to be fantasy films. I'm looking at the list right now, and I think The Green Knight is the only fantasy film that I have.
Well, fantasy. This is
That's what I'm saying. Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
medieval times
Right, right.
count, like because of the last duel that just came that
Here's the thing, though.
recently came out.
Still haven't seen it, and
Oh, okay. I thought you told me you'd seen it.
no, I saw the other Ridley Scott, uh, fucking Bond.
The other film
I
Ridley
fought.
Scott is
I
taking
fought.
the opportunity to yell about.
I saw the Gooch. I saw Gucci House. I saw the
Oh,
House.
that's right.
Gucci House. But we won't talk about that. Uh, just mainly because I came out of that movie going, yeah, all right.
Well,
Probably.
we really won't talk about it because apparently Scott just prowls around waiting to get mad at people for talking shit about his
God
movies.
damn it! Why is everybody going to see Spider-Man without whips like a little kid? I just want to talk about rape in medieval times, and I want to talk about really rich people fucking each other over. I want to
You
talk
should
about
be
Lady
glad I
Gaga.
made a movie about you.
I want to talk about Adam Driver. He's my boy. Adam Driver was in a far better film that came out this year, and that's the next film I want to talk about. I actually did not put this on my list, but talking about Adam Driver just now reminded me of it. He was in a movie called Annette, which was directed by the oh my gosh, I'm blanking on the director's name. Hold on.
Holding on. Annette.
Yes,
Baguette.
directed by Leo Carax, who did Holy Motors. He did Pola X. He's a very French director. And the movie stars Adam Driver, Marion Cotillard, and Simon Helberg from Big Bang Theory. Wallowitz is in it. Wallowitz and Kylo Ren and the wife from Inception.
The A team.
Yes, and it was written by the Sparks Brothers, who are a very awesome rock band that you should listen to. And it's a weird, like, very artistic movie that you are definitely either going to like or love in the same way that you would The Green Knight.
Like or
Because
love.
it's like or love.
You
Definitely
will
not.
like or love this movie. I will not hear of anyone disliking or hating it.
Right. It does not exist for this movie. No, I mean, okay, so for 80% of the movie, Adam Driver and Marion Cotillard are this couple. He is a stand-up comedian along the lines of Bo Burnham, and Marion Cotillard is like an opera singer, and they get together and fall in love, and they have a kid who is portrayed as a puppet for 90% of the movie, and she has an amazing talent of her own, and it's the whole movie is a musical. So Adam Driver's singing, Marion Cotillard is singing, Simon Helberg is singing, and it's a really interesting movie, and I think people should just check it out, start it, and see what you think. It's it feels like I'm watching a play, like I'm in the theater and I'm watching.
Well, it was written as a one act, right?
Yeah. But there's definitely like it's you kind of feel the length in some of the middle because it definitely
Mhm.
takes a while to get to the actual the rising action climax, that part of the film, the third act. Um, but once it gets going, once you kind of get into the groove of what the feel of the movie, you are kind of just along for the ride. But it's interesting. I never thought I would enjoy Adam Driver's singing, and it's kind of like that talk singing where it's one of those like
Okay, yeah.
yeah. Yeah, but you can check it out. It's on Amazon Prime Video if you have the service.
Nice, nice.
Adam Driver.
Real quick, I wanna talk about a animated movie that I really enjoyed. Just because I meant to bring it up when we were briefly mentioning Disney, but for a while there was a lot of talk about, oh, the animation industry is dying, and there's no alternatives to Disney, and
Mm.
yada yada yada. And I definitely think there's merit in discussing the kind of uh, takeover, the heavy influence of big companies, and or at this point, like,
Kind of buying either like are you talking about like buying up animation studios or like kind of
yeah,
overseeing
or
them?
like Disney shut down Blue Sky over the last year. So
Not
a lot of
stopping
people
Ice
were,
Age. Ice Age coming out with a new movie.
but the studio itself was shut down
Yeah,
with the Fox acquisition. So that would a lot of people were talking about how there's not really a whole lot of options anymore because Disney is destroying the market, and that's just not true. It's
right.
just not true. Like I said, I think there's definitely a discussion to be had about like availability and ease of access, but we had one of the best animated features of all time released this past year, and I don't think enough people talk about it, and that's the Mitchells versus the Machines.
Oh, okay, good. I was like, he's gonna talk about Vivo, isn't he?
I didn't watch Vivo,
Okay,
but to
I
your
did.
point, this is another non-Disney film that was pretty well received. I remember.
Oh yeah,
But Mitchell's versus the Machines was just a tour de force of animation quality and spectacular writing, great comedy. Um, Definitely, if you are interested in any way, shape, or form in animation, you have got to check it out. It is just such a fantastic movie, full of care and heart. A definite message in there for anyone who's struggling within kind of a quote unquote normal family dynamic. It doesn't feel like maybe you belong or you're being pressured to be something that you're not. But coming to terms with, or not coming to terms, but approaching and having conversations with the people that you want to keep in your life
yeah.
who don't necessarily know how to start that conversation.
I mean, it's about family when you boil it all down. It's about family.
Yes.
It's about the relationships, yeah, like you're saying, that you have with your family, and obviously, all of the nuances that come with that. You know, every family, everyone has that family, or they feel like they have that family that's just weird and awkward. You don't want to be around them. My dad's weird. He collects, beaks. My mom likes to crochet real murders, and my brother is he likes to make melon ballers. I don't know. I think that it
Which
definitely
good point.
brings that character out, and it's definitely it's heartwarming. It's got that heartwarming like kind of fluff feel that you don't get with a lot of stuff. We will talk about probably Ted Lasso at one specific point or
Yeah.
another. It almost seems like a guarantee.
Yes.
But it's heartwarming. It's that same feeling I saw where I felt when I watched the Lego movie for the first time. It's that Phil Lord, Chris Miller kind of like, it's just it's humor that everyone can basically kind of just understand, you know, because everyone can, like, oh, I have that kind of dad, or oh, I have that kind of brother, or I have that kind of sister.
It's
Kind of
referential in the sense of referencing reality as opposed to, oh, remember when this happened on that TV show.
Yeah.
But then it's also like there's a bunch of absurdist humor in there as well.
Oh yeah.
Get when you have a machine uprising across the globe.
It's that perfect amalgamation of like Lego movie humor with like Into the Spider-Verse animation. And it just kind of it hit that perfect point for everybody. And the voice acting is fantastic with Abby Jacobson and Danny McBride, Maya Rudolph all being in there doing fantastic work. I kind of want to rewatch it actually. It's been a minute since I've seen it.
You should. I actually just rewatched it probably about a month ago. It holds up.
Yeah.
I mean, it holds up. It just came out. It's still great on a second time, is what I meant. Yeah, I mean, it's just, it is, if someone tells you that there aren't options available for animation, and with all this being said, I just recently watched Encanto, and that was a very enjoyable movie. I quite enjoyed that. For me, I enjoyed it.
That's fair. I know I'm in the minority.
But I can understand why you would want to seek something out that is not Disney. Much like Spider-Man, you know Disney is going to have a successful on some level movie. So you want to support something that is not as heavily advertised or not as well known. Mitchell's versus the Machines very squarely falls into that category. But then you're also lucky enough to have great availability. You can go watch it on Netflix right now. Super easy to get a hold of. And I think like for a lot of people when they're having this conversation, accessibility is kind of what they're thinking about. Like, oh, well, if I want to see this, I'll have to track it down. In this case specifically, it's not true, but also in most general cases, it's not true. Most of the animation projects that are being released at this point are on pretty much any of the streaming services.
Yeah.
Now, whether or not they're advertised is another thing, but I'm sorry to say it, but if you want to get something other than Disney, instead of
you have to
bitching about it on Twitter, well, we might. I don't know if we're gonna separate this down the middle between movies and TV shows, but at the same time that conversation was happening, Infinity Train Book 4 was coming out.
Yeah.
Nothing from these people who are supposedly wanting other projects that aren't Disney related. And just the fact that we lost Infinity Train, which again, HBO Max did not advertise, so I get why a lot of people didn't know about it.
At all. Yeah.
But I mean, at some point, if you are this anti, conglomerate, establishment, whatever, and I get that, again, do the work. Put in the legwork. Go find it. Because there's so much good shit out there, and it kills me anytime they fall cracks like this.
There's success stories. There are success stories. I don't know what happened with my voice there. There are success stories. Mike Riotta, who helped write and direct Mitchell's vs. the Machines, he helped co-direct Gravity Falls for a large portion of it. So it's the stories and shows that you want to support them. Whether they're on Disney or not, I think if you want to see more independent or more non-Disney type shows, then you have to go out of your comfort zone and watch them on a different streaming platform if you want to see them, or just broaden your horizons just in general when it comes to watching stuff. I know.
You can't complain about being spoon fed and then not get your own plate, you know?
Exactly. Exactly. I'm hungry. But that, yeah, just that's actually a good idea. I think we will probably split this into multiple parts, like more than two. Probably do movies and then TV shows, and then I have a special third part that we'll do. Ooh, interesting. Tease.
Intriguing.
Let me talk about the next movie that I wanted to talk about. Actually, before we get too far away from Mitchells vs. Machines, because it's kind of in the same wheelhouse, I did see Ron's Gone Wrong.
Mm.
Great movie. I thought it was it wasn't what I expected or what I thought that the story was going to be, but it was a very heartwarming story about a kid who has like no friends, and he decides to create his own friend with broken, I guess, essentially an iPod kind of, or iPhone. Did I just date myself by saying iPod?
Yes.
Are iPods still a thing?
No. I mean, they're around. No, I don't think anyone really has one. I mean, I do have one. I don't use it, but
well, we're both old.
yeah,
Yes,
we already established this.
Yeah, that's at the beginning, But Ron's Gone Wrong, fantastic. You can watch that on Disney Plus. But the next movie I want to talk about is, I don't know if I want to go back to indies or if I want to talk indies or blockbusters. Which one, Zach?
Oh, let's hit up that blockbuster block.
Ooh, all right. Let's talk about No Time to Die. The first big movie only release after a long dry summer of no movie releases whatsoever. Or that were like they went to theaters, but they were also on streaming, or they were only on streaming. But this was the big like blockbuster that they kept delaying over and over and over again. It was one of the first movies to be delayed at the beginning of the pandemic. And No Time to Die is probably one of the most perfect endings to an overarching film series that I've seen in a while.
Wow, that was large praise.
Well, I say that mainly because I had the luck, chance, and opportunity to rewatch the Daniel Craig movies with you, with friends, to kind of get the ball rolling and get the excitement and anticipation going for the release of No Time to Die. And I managed to time it out perfectly, having rewatched the previous, is it 4 movies? Let's see, Casino Royale.
Yeah, 4.
Quantum of Solace, Skyfall, Spectre, and then No Time to Die. It's 5 movies, and then I watched them each week by week. And honestly, I think that was the most perfect way that you could encapsulate this entire overarching play, because it references literally every single one of those movies throughout that series.
It's a ending and a send up to the Daniel Craig franchise, or the Daniel Craig string of movies from the franchise.
It definitely is. Even more than it is for James Bond, it is for Daniel Craig. It's more kind of a send off for Daniel Craig himself. And without going too much into the story or plot or anything, I definitely feel like you should watch at least Skyfall and Spectre before watching this one. Just because it will give you a little bit more of the tone and feel, as opposed to, while Casino Royale is fantastic, you can skip Quantum of Solace. It's, I don't know. It was that bombastic. It was that going back to the movie theater, sitting down, knowing exactly what I was going to be expecting from a James Bond movie, and being completely blown out of the water when it comes to direction, with Cary Fukunaga doing a phenomenal fucking job after picking up from Sam Mendes previously, who I thought the bar was way too high and just got raised much higher. I'm sorry, I'm at a loss for words. I think the acting was phenomenal. I particularly like what they do with the villain in Rami Malek. And yeah, it went in directions that I wasn't expecting, and it's a fantastic Bond movie. If you're a fan of James Bond movies, if you're a fan of action movies or spy movies, you're going to enjoy this. So, yeah.
Do you feel the same way about Matrix?
The Matrix 4?
Yes.
No. But we will get to that. We will get to that, because I did the exact same thing with the Matrix movies, and I did the exact same thing with another movie that I want to talk about. I'm gonna continue going. You can't fucking
Go,
stop
go,
me,
take the wheel,
son of a
baby.
bitch.
I'm putting my feet up on the dash, and I'm just
You
letting you
should
take
not do that. That's how you fucked this microphone.
the
Uh,
metaphorical dash.
so I watched the original Candyman before watching the Candyman
Ah, yes.
remake that came out last year, and son of a bitch, that was a fantastic horror movie. Not only was it a direct homage to the previous Candyman films and the film series, because there's more than just the original. The sequel I still have yet to see, but I've heard good things. Um, but it not only is a send up of the original Candyman mythology and film series, but it also kind of breathes a fresh new air into the mythology just overall, and kind of creates a backstory not only for the original Candyman but for the new Candyman that appears in this film. And it's connected, but you also don't have to watch the original to watch this one. There's like no barrier of entry, which I think is always great for a remake. You shouldn't have to have a barrier of
Yes.
entry.
Yeah.
Um, Produced by Jordan Peele, which is always a good sign.
Mhm.
Directed by Nia DaCosta.
Right.
No, not John Candy. It's silly.
John
Candyman.
Candyman.
I'd watch
That
that.
is a different movie.
That's a very different movie. Oh my god, I want a mock-up of that poster.
Just Uncle Buck standing in a dilapidated apartment
It's
building.
the poster of Uncle Buck, but instead of him like knocking it, it's the hook hand. It's a different. That's a different, because Candyman isn't just about like a guy with a hook for hands coming after people. It's very much a story about racism, and it's a story about classism, and it's a story about privilege versus privilege. It and I like what Nia DaCosta does with the new take on the story, and I think, like I said, you don't have that barrier of entry for the original. Although I do think it gives an extra layer of nuance to the new one if you watch the original.
Yeah, like any good, reboot or late sequel,
Mm-hmm.
it allows you to come in without any prior knowledge. But for those who do, there's things in there that will be like, oh, this is for me.
Yeah, and what's even better about the movie, and I can't believe I'm adding this as like a kind of a cool little like golden star on their fucking chart of accomplishments. The end credits, I love it when end credits like add even more to the story after
Uh,
the story itself is already over, because people are filing out.
yes,
They're like, oh, okay, credits.
like a
Drop the line.
epilogue, but in credits
Right.
form. Yeah,
And I love seeing that, especially with what they do, because if you watch the trailer, it's got that kind of like shadow puppet, paper
yeah,
puppet kind of thing. They tell a story through the end credits with that, and it adds even more to the story. And I thought that was really cool. I love epilogues in movies. Um,
yeah.
but
You know what?
I'm what? Sorry.
So go ahead. I'll finish up.
Oh, I didn't have anything.
Oh, okay. I was gonna say, you know what else did that epilogue? Luca. Luca did that.
Did it?
Uh-huh. Yeah, there's I mean, that's I don't know if I won't spoil it, but yes, yeah, it did. There are like little pictures in the credits after the movie ends where it is the cast of characters continuing afterwards.
Oh, I vaguely remember that. I feel like that.
I think I'm one of the few people that really liked Luca as much as they did. It was just like a very nice, chill, pastoral kids animated movie. They're not too high stakes or
Yeah, it
end
felt
of the
light.
world sort of thing.
Yeah,
It was very much a Ghibli movie from Disney.
I did get Ponyo vibes when watching it.
Yes, or even stuff like Totoro.
Yeah.
It has it's kid focus where your main characters are children
Mm-hmm.
of a younger age, and it's just kind of about them living life and hanging out. And I mean, there's other stuff there too, but the main crux of the movie is just kind of figuring out what life they want to have, or just having fun, um, with some emotional ties that are always in Disney movies. at these days. um, so yeah, I just thought it was a really nice, lighthearted movie. But yes, the main original point was that they do that credit thing
Okay,
that,
yeah.
that you like.
I was getting all glazy eyed. I'm like, yeah, I definitely remember Luca. There were a lot of anime. We'll talk about it because one of my biggest pet peeves of this year specifically was that there was too much Lin Manuel Miranda, just overall. But with the small caveat of Tick Tick Boom is one of the better movies of last year as well. So I can't really win with my own fucking argument. He helped. He directed
Yes.
Tick Tick Boom, but he's also literally in every freaking Disney production that came out this year.
Yeah, I
So
mean, he In the Heights was at the beginning of the
we
year.
got. So I'm glad you're bringing that up. We got 3 different movie musicals based on Latinx culture, which I think is phenomenal when it comes to representation. One being kind of a remake of a classic Broadway musical, but still counts because it's not like it was remade in modern times or anything. But we
Yeah,
got that with In the Heights, West Side Story, and Encanto, which
yeah.
Lin Manuel Miranda being a part of 2 of those. And I mean, if you want to count Vivo, you can count Vivo as well, even
It's
though it
true.
doesn't technically, it still counts. It's still a musical. Um, so there was a huge overabundance of movie musicals with Latinx representation and culture in the story, and I just want to give a quick shout out to those 4 movies. Uh, West Side Story being kind of the least of the 4, which is baffling to me that I would
That's not
rank.
too bad though. 3 out of 4, and
Yeah,
not too shabby.
not too shabby. So I guess I just knocked those 4. I don't have to. I could take off West Side Story. It was
Uh,
it
no,
was
you
a
go.
pretty good. It was a pretty good adaptation. I think. I mean, it had that Steven Spielberg feel. When as soon as the movie starts, you're like, man, I am in a Steven Spielberg uh, story. I'm not saying I'm in the story. I'm saying like
Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
invested, and I'm definitely watching a Steven Spielberg movie. He just has that
engrossed.
feel. He has that feel, and that definitely brings a lot more enjoyment for me personally watching the movie because uh, it's not a lot of great chemistry between the 2 main leads, and the story itself is just way longer than it needed to be. Which again, I get it. It's already based off of a previous musical and or Broadway musical and previous film, so maybe I wasn't 100% in the mood for West Side Story, but I thought I would. I definitely enjoyed it more than most people because it's a huge box office bomb.
I was gonna say, well, at least you're not alone.
But to be fair, it came out the same weekend as Spider-Man, so
That was a bad
that
call.
was a
I'm
very
not
bad
sure why
call.
they made that call.
Well, do you see a lot of overlap between West Side the audience members between West Side
If
Story
you're
and Spider-Man?
one, generally no. Two, it's a pandemic still. So
Still,
if someone's going out to a movie theater, they probably are just they want to see something.
yeah.
And if you have 2 big movies coming out at the same time, you're probably going to be like, do I want to sit through a 4-hour musical or through a Spider-Man movie where he goes twip twip twip?
Spider-Man is technically like I think it's like 30 minutes longer than West Side Story.
Is it really?
Yeah, hold on, I'll look this up because this is an interesting factoid. West Side Story 2021. Rachel Ziegler is the best part of the movie, by the way. Ansel Elgort can eat a dick, but yeah, West Side Story is 2 hours 36 minutes. Already pretty long on average for any live action musical. Let's do Spiderman.
I think you're right. I think I seem to remember Spider-Man being like 240 or something.
No, I was incorrect. Spider-Man
Nope.
is 10 minutes
10 hours.
10 minutes shorter.
Holy shit.
People are still walking out with bow-legged, like, ah, man, look at that Spiderman.
They really do mean there's no way home.
There's no way
Not
out.
clear.
They lock the doors when you get in. No, I was incorrect. West Side Story is longer, but I guess retroactively, I am still tired from having watched that movie. That just goes to show how much you don't feel the time in a movie like Spider-Man, whereas
Yeah,
West Side Story definitely made me feel
you
the time.
become acutely aware of it.
Indeed. What's another one?
You were mentioning musical
Mhm.
stuff. Nick, I watched a lot of documentaries over the last year. I'm sort of a documentary fiend, as it were. Just documentary, 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 which I know you love. I know you love it when I come on here to talk about my documentaries. All that being said, I'm kidding, but I did finally get around to watching. It's Summer of Soul, which is a documentary on Hulu about the Harlem Cultural Festival in 1969, which was taking place on the I believe it's the same time that, if not a week separated, like the same general time frame of Woodstock. The same. The moon landing literally took place on the day of the festival. It was a year after MLK was assassinated. Um, so you have all these cultural signifiers surrounding this one event. And up until now, it was just kind of shoved into a basement and lost to time. Um, but so Questlove, the artist, he was behind this, so he was able to acquire that footage and kind of put together this amalgamation of a documentary, a time capsule of sorts, as well as a concert. There's straight up concert footage from the event. You get to sit down and watch these performances. I mean, fuck, Ray Charles is
Yeah.
there, or not Ray Charles. I think Stevie Wonder. Um,
Ray Charles couldn't find his way to the stage.
um, Stevie Wonder's blind too.
I know. But Stevie Wonder showed up.
You have Gladys Knight. The one of the singers from Temptations who had just got to do his solo run. It's just a huge pool of black talent on one stage, and being able to watch the performances, as well as kind of get this dive into the sort of the feeling of that Harlem community. Like, they're doing interviews with people who are in the audience about, like, hey, we landed on the moon. What do you think about that? A lot of people are like, hey, that's great, but what does it fucking matter if you can't feed your people on Earth?
Yeah.
And so, like, not only is it an interesting time capsule and kind of cultural, like, deep dive into this sort of social study, but I feel like it's very timely as well. A lot of the things that they're discussing are still prescient in today's time.
So the questions we're asking today, kind of.
Yeah, so it is I feel, for me, it is the best version of a documentary. Like, it is the subject matter alone is very interesting, but when you're able to not only, provide your subject matter, but you're also able to connect it to people and the surrounding history of it, as well as then relate it to what's going on. Like, that is a hard thing to do. That's why a lot of they're crime based, because you're relying on the sort of baked in mystery of the crime to keep your uh entertained or involved,
Right. Yeah.
as macabre as that is. um but with this, it's not, it's a beautiful uh kind of look into how this past was so significant at the time, and consequently was, for reasons that we're fully aware of it at this point,
Yeah.
was that up until now. So much of Black history is lost to time just by virtue of being shoved in a warehouse somewhere. And this is like you're seeing people who were there in the audience on that day, and they're watching back this footage, and they're talking about how it it's it feels good to see it, not just because it's nice, but because it's something that they haven't seen in a long. So they felt crazy,
Yeah.
you know. Like there's one individual who says, you know, I didn't feel crazy, but I felt crazy. You know, like I knew it happened, but I didn't see it anywhere. And so I like for me, that is the best thing that a documentary can do.
Mhm.
It's take the past, relate it to the now, and then just kind of like encompass it with like all the different things that were going on, how it occurred, and how they've transitioned into things going on now. So if you're looking for a documentary fix, highly recommend Summer of Soul. It is very spectacular and beautiful documentary. Um, if you're looking for something a little bit, you know, more,
Outside of your wheelhouse, kind of telling stories that a lot of people probably didn't know that they needed to hear. I mean,
yeah,
if it's relating to current events, it's being able to show a side of representation that a lot of people feel like had been buried for decades at this point. It's it's kind of like going to a museum and finding that one painting that like just really attaches itself to you, or a statue, or whatever you're looking at, and finding yourself going to the museum again, you know, and again and again. It's stories and stuff that you never thought you would be able to relate to, asking questions or giving answers or points of views. Uh,
well, and it's just being able to see things that were not you weren't given the opportunity to see
right.
before because they were actively hidden or
Yeah.
destroyed. And I don't think there's very many things that you footage. This event happened a year after one of the most tumultuous times
Mm-hmm.
uh, due to assassination of a public figure. Uh, Also, on the same day as the fucking moon landing.
Yeah.
Like, there's so many different things going on societally at that point, and it's just it the context of the things that are happening at the same time give it uh help you understand why this event was so important
Why it's still
for the
important.
people there. Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I mean, a lot of the questions that you can ask 40 years ago, you can ask now, because a lot of the things that we or that they had hoped to change may not have changed all the way up until this point. So
Hmm.
it's culturally relevant even to this day. I think that's important, and why I think documentaries that reach out and have subject matter like this are important. That was on my watch list. I it completely passed me by, and I wanted to check it out because I actually originally heard about it on NPR. Subtle fucking NPR listening flex, but
Well,
yeah.
I would definitely recommend it. And the concert itself, I mean, is fantastic too. There's so many. Like I grew up with a lot of the performers, just on that are there, just on in the background. So
Mhm.
a lot of that was very nostalgic for
That's awesome.
me. Yeah. Let me look something up here real quick.
Not to do completely totally derail, because I also happened to watch a documentary, but the Get Back Peter Jackson
Yeah.
Beatles documentary was also fantastic. It's just a lot of unseen footage that they managed to restore in HD. It's the only thing is that he stretches it out over 7 hours,
Yeah.
three different parts, and it's like 2 hours.
So I do. I haven't watched it yet, but I do. I remember looking at it because I it had been on my radar. Um, and I went to go look at the listing on Disney Plus
Hmm.
to kind of just gauge it. Um, and it said part one, and it's like 2.5 hours for that part, and the description is a 4-part series. I'm like,
Yeah. Yep.
fuck.
Yep.
That's
Yeah.
ugh.
Okay, so full disclosure, I didn't finish it. I only watched the first 2 parts, but I felt like I got the gist of it. And I'm already a fan of the Beatles. I'm only feeding the need to listen to the Beatles by watching it. I thought it was interesting seeing another side of their story, especially at that time period, because it was
Right.
near the end of that band, and you see a lot of the struggles that you didn't think you would ever, if you didn't know that much about the Beatles, but like you like their music, and you didn't know that they go through the same trouble that nearly every band goes through, and that's
A lot of
like
tension and
tension.
disagreement.
Yeah, Yoko Ono is spoiler alert, not really the catalyst as to the
Yeah,
breakup.
I mean, and that, yeah, that I do know. That's always kind of been the party line for people who are still upset over the Beatles separating
Mm.
when they did. But I think Paul has always kind of been straight up and talked about how no, there were issues outside of Yoko
Yeah,
that contributed to
it was Paul.
it.
Spoiler alert.
It's shocker.
Yeah, Paul was actually the
The
asshole.
prima donna was the problem.
Yeah, the guy's still around is the problem. Anyway, do you mind if I do another one?
Go for it.
All right, I've only got a couple more. I'm gonna breeze through a couple of horror movies. The Night House, a fantastic ghost story film starring Rebecca Hall. It's a very small story, very small cast, but very beautifully. The story is very beautifully told, and I feel it's very nuanced enough to be kind of accessible for everyone because it's definitely a story of abuse and trauma and kind of what that does to a person's like psyche. And I was pleasantly surprised by the end of it, and I think people should check it out. The Night House.
The Night House. What else you got?
The next movie is Malignant, which is both on this list, which is movie highlights, and then also one of the worst movies.
I can't. Yeah, I can't decide where I'm at.
I can't. Yeah, I also cannot tell if I love it or hate it. But looking back at it now, especially not being as close to it from seeing it, I don't hate it as much because I know that it's definitely going for a specific tone. It's going for a very fuck. I don't even know.
I mean, it's very B movie
Yeah,
in the
it's
way it goes about things. I think it definitely still has problems. But yes, by the end of it, so off the rails, like
I mean, if you know
very
the
clear.
definition of the word of the title of the movie, you know the twist of the movie. That's the thing. I guessed I don't like doing this with horror movies, like the ones that have a twist. I don't like guessing the twist at the beginning because that ruins the rest of the movie for you. And the whole point of the movie is to like just be along for the ride. Horror movies are roller coasters, okay? You need to just strap in, let the movie wash over you, and then when the credits roll, that's when you're allowed to let go. That's when you're allowed to get out. Because if you start to guess where the monster will appear or what the twist is, it ruins movies for you. Trust me. That's why a lot when you sit in a movie theater and you know you're gonna watch a horror movie, there's always gonna be that one person in the theater who's like secretly talking to the person they're with, like, "Oh, you think?" Or like, "No, don't run in there." The stereotypical kinds. Anyway, I'm just
So I do think it's interesting that you say that because I think actually, while yeah, even if you don't pick up immediately when the movie starts, like the first scene, you're like, oh, okay, well
mm,
that's what leads to this. Um, I don't think that's what is going on with Melina. And back to our original review of it. Again, I still have plenty of problems with the movie,
mm,
but I think the main problem why so many people, including ourselves, are so kind of undecided about it in the long run, is because it cannot decide what it wants to be. Does it want to be a mystery? Well, if so, you gave away the mystery at the first half of the movie, or
Yeah.
not even the first half, first 10 minutes of the movie.
Yeah.
Um, do you want to be a B movie slasher? That's great, but the first part of the movie is a mystery, so you have to wait to kind of go crazy. I think it's taking all of these different things that it wants to be and kind of trying to squish them together, and it only works a little bit of the time. When it does work, it's really fun and a silly,
It's not
silly fun
it's
movie.
not peanut butter and jelly, it's peanut butter and cheese. And I feel like it's trying to do two things, just like what you were saying.
Yeah,
Um and the most upsetting part is that it's a James Wan directed film. Like,
yeah.
this is the guy behind Saw, behind Insidious, behind so many great horror films from the last 2 decades that yeah, the expectations were really high, and I think we were just like, what the fuck is this? Like, we wanted to like wait for the nuance of like the horror to actually set in, but I
Yeah.
was never at any point horrified.
I I do think I don't often do this, but I do think the blame and the reception of the movie lies with the audience
Mm,
more so than the creator. Um, in the sense that, as you were saying, we see James Wan attached to it. We know his resume. We're like, hell yeah, let's buckle up for a really great horror movie.
right.
And what we actually get is this sort of um, personal art installation almost sort of thing. Like it wasn't a job that he did to be like, I'm gonna make this the best thing ever. It was a job. Literally every part of it was him going, fuck yeah, I love this shit. Let's do this here.
It
Let's do
just
this
it
here.
seemed like a fun like extra credit that he was doing. Like,
Yeah.
hey, James Wan, I need you to like direct this Halloween ride. Can you do that? Hell yeah, it's called Malignant. Not to bring, fucking roller coasters back into it, but that's what this feels like. It feels like a carnival ride.
Yeah.
It with and the good and the bad that comes from that. Did not think we would talk about Malignant again for this long, but
You know what? It's the movies that you least expect, right?
exactly. And the last horror movie I wanted to talk about is A Quiet Place Part 2, which is, you
Still
know,
have not seen this one.
holy shit, are you kidding me?
I am not.
That's
It
on
was
you now. It's been on streaming for quite a
it
while, sir.
it has been. It was initially only in theaters,
Hmm.
which is why I didn't see it at the beginning of the year. And then just kind of casualty of other stuff coming out after it and kind of sweeping it away. I have to remind myself that it even exists most of the time.
That's fair. That's fair, because it was also one of those big movies that people were looking forward to. Uh, that I believe it was supposed to come out like in October of 2020.
It
It got
was,
pushed.
yeah. Even I
Um,
think even before that, I think it was a little earlier in the year of 2020.
That's right. So it was another one of those big movie casualties that people were like, "Oh no!" And so when movies started getting back into it, 2021, almost skipped that one. People, yeah, definitely skipped on it when it was in theaters, and now it's on you for having missed it all the way up until now. I think
It's
it's
just crazy because it's like it's one of the ones that yeah, a lot of people were looking forward to, and then I think I heard about it a week and then it just vanished again.
the thing about it is it's very much a part two of three, or a part two of however long they're going to be doing it. I believe it's
Yeah,
probably only going to have one more. I think I personally think Jim can John Krasinski can definitely wants to move on to something else. I definitely feels like he's ramping up to moving on to other projects. But basically, A Quiet Place Part Two is exactly what it is. It's a continuation of the original classic horror hit, um, and it's more of that story. They introduce a few more characters and a few more things about the monsters, and a little bit more of the backstory of the characters, including a flashback which you see in the trailer. Um, but it gives you kind of more of the story of this family and what they're going through in this post-apocalypse. And I'm really excited for part 3 whenever that comes out. I believe they're writing it right now.
it's
And I don't know if you call it a horror movie, But Ghostbusters Afterlife is one of the best sequels slash reboots this past year. Just period.
Can't wait till I can watch it.
If you're a fan of the original, or you're just you're excited to get started in the Ghostbusters franchise, you can literally jump into this having not watched the other Ghostbusters movies. But just like Candyman, just like any reboot from a long-established franchise, any year, you're definitely going to get more of a nuance and more of an appreciation for this movie having watched the originals. And this was another movie that I watched the originals before leading into this, and it definitely added that extra layer. Phenomenal, heartwarming. I teared up several times in the theater, and just overall great. Yeah,
Nice.
Surprise cameos in there too, like multiple.
So probably the last one that I'll talk about in terms of movies is I was finally able to get around to watching Shang-Chi because this was another one that was theaters on this time. And then it fairly recently came out on Disney Plus, like within the last month and a half or so.
Yeah.
So I was able to get around to watching that, and I really enjoyed Shang-Chi. It was a what?
I was gonna say I didn't say anything, but I was gonna say it's Shang-Chi. I don't want to be one of those. Yeah, it's not.
Oh, it is because she makes the joke about.
Yeah.
And Sean.
Yeah.
That's right. I'll take that correction. You're right. Shang-Chi. Yeah, really, really fun kind of older style Marvel movie. With a little bit of the extra Phase 4 mysticism that we're coming to expect.
I feel like we'll probably dive more into the other, because I want to talk about Shang-Chi. You just obviously brought it up, but I definitely want to talk about more of the MCU when we're talking about the TV shows as well.
Yes.
But there is definitely Phase 4 of the movies are going in a very specific, like, hey, we're going to try new things, new directors. Eternals definitely went into a very specific direction. Shang-Chi went into a very specific type of direction. Successful enough to where the director of Shang-Chi is coming back for the sequel, which has already been confirmed. Eternals is unclear because they haven't greenlit a sequel, even though they hinted at it at the end. Spoiler alert. And Black Widow is kind of just a weird, like, it's another Phase 3 kind of epilogue kind of thing.
Well, in a weird way, it's more supplemental material.
Yeah.
To Hawkeye, which I think we'll talk about later.
Yeah.
Shang-Chi is just, it's fun. There's not a huge, like a deep thing going on there. I mean, I don't know if you can say that about mostly any Marvel movie. But it's just a fun blockbuster action movie. I really like Shang as a lead character. I feel like he sticks out from all your other leads. Like, he's not just an Iron Man copy. He's not just a Star-Lord or Thor copy or anything like that. I think he has his style of approach and comedy, which I enjoy.
It'll be interesting to see him bounce off of the other already pre-established Marvel heroes, but I'll agree with that up to that point. Yeah, because right now there is definitely a mold for the Marvel hero, or at least for most of them. There's definitely that the sarcastic, funny, witty, quippy hero who's also really good at what they do.
The funny thing about Shang, though, is that he is quippy, but not in a good way. Right. He's like an awkward kind of quippy sort of thing. So I don't think it tracks to like put him in that like Tony sort of style.
Like every actor brings their own nuance to the writing, but there's definitely a okay, he needs to at least have some funny one-liners in their own solo movies, at the very least. And then whenever they're bouncing off of other characters, that just kind of depends based on the dynamic of the characters and on how referential they want to be to their own movies. So it just kind of depends,
Yeah. Choreography is fantastic. Just great fight scenes in there. I mean, I know everybody talks about the train scene, but even the stuff after that, there's a whole fight on the side of a building on some scaffolding, which is
Yeah.
really cool. They're all like kind of dodging in and out of these stilts. Um, and then yeah, later on in the movie, some more of your mysticism with the Ten Rings. The shadow dragon or whatever it is fucking terrifying. That is some Cthulhu esque shit there.
Well, it's funny you say that because he is technically also a Doctor Strange villain.
Yeah.
The Dweller in Darkness.
Yeah.
He's technically a I think it's
Ish.
a Tales of uh the line of comics that's Tales of Suspense or Tales of Mystery, where Doctor Strange is originally from.
Kind of like
Like his
Shumagorath
yeah,
esque.
yes, wink, wink, nudge, nudge. Doctor Strange too. But yeah, I thought it definitely starts off as one movie, and then in the second half
It
when you get
does.
to um,
It's.
is it
I know a lot of people had kind of took umbrage with that because it's a very stark divide on your first half and your second half. Um, but I enjoyed it. You got two different flavors in there, and I think they work better. Um, or I think they worked well
right?
when placed side by side together.
So is that the only Marvel movie you watched this year?
No, I did watch Black Widow,
Oh, that's right.
which was okay. I had some issues with it, but I didn't dislike that as much as some people. It was fine.
It's fine. Yeah, it's just like you said. It was basically set up for not only Hawkeye but also for several characters that show up in Hawkeye as well as Phase 4. It just definitely seems like it's a bookend. It's the beginning
Yes,
bookend part.
yes.
Um,
It's a epilogue and a prologue at the same time.
exactly, exactly.
And then Eternals I haven't seen because it was in theaters only, and that doesn't drop on Disney Plus until I think the 12th. So
Yes, which is this week
yeah,
in a couple days. Uh, what do I have to say about Eternals? I think it is one of the most visually appealing Marvel movies to date. That being said, the story is not great. So it has a lot that it has to do. It has to set up a looming overarching threat that will be a major player in the end of this phase. I'm assuming it has to be. Um, it sets up thousands and thousands and thousands of years that take place. It's constantly doing flashbacks to different time periods, not in a confusing way, but it's telling a backstory that is taking place over thousands and thousands of years. So there is backstory that you have to get from these characters that have lived that whole time that don't really change that much over the years except for specific events. Um, there's a lot of characters that have to get screen time that don't get enough screen time. By the end of the movie, I will not spoil it, but they have to get rid of screen time for certain characters to supplement the main characters. They advertise the movie as being kind of for all of these eternal beings, but it really kind of pulls out the rug from underneath a lot of them that could have had the chance to really shine in the story. Um, there's no, I won't say anything else, but it's visually appealing. It's very slow. It's probably one of the slower. It's also one of the longer Marvel movies. It's up there with Spider-Man: No Way Home, which is one of the longer ones as well.
in 10 hours,
Or
Jesus.
it'll take you days. But with all that being said, I think it's definitely in the bottom tier for a lot of people. And I'm not trying to pick it apart because I hated it, because I didn't hate it. I think it was definitely too large of of it had to do a lot, basically, like what I said at the beginning. It had to do a lot, and they didn't get to do all of it. And they set it up for a sequel that, again, hasn't been greenlit, which is not promising. So I don't know. Harry Styles.
Yeah, it's crazy. You mentioned it outside of the podcast, but Chloe Zhao going from Nomadland
Winning.
to Eternals within the span of a year.
Yeah.
It's very rare for a director to go from sort of I mean, would you call Nomadland indie smaller film?
Yeah, I mean,
Just such a big blockbuster in that short amount of time.
Yeah. Well, one production has significantly less production time on it than the other, so you could definitely feel the I'm not saying that she filmed them back to back, but she definitely worked on one and then immediately went into Eternals and worked on that for the majority of the end of 2020 and leading into 2021. And you could tell because there was a lot of scenes filmed where there were like no one. There was no one but the main principal cast. And it's a very CGI heavy movie too.
Oh, out of that, quite frankly, probably has a lot to do with the pandemic.
Yeah. No, yeah. That's what I'm saying is that she was working on Nomadland for the majority of the beginning part of 2020, and that released at the end of 2020, and then leading into 2021, where she won Best Picture. And then, of course, Disney, Marvel already selecting her because they had seen Nomadland and wanted to say, use a prestige director at that point for a project. That was a big risk. And I mean, it's the same risk picking a first-time director to film a headlining feature, like Peyton Reed with the Ant-Man now trilogy.
Yeah.
So, yeah. And then, of course, Spider-Man No Way Home. No Way Home.
The 10-hour epic
is a fantastic homage to the Spider-Man character, to his villains. I cannot say anything because Zach will kill me, and there will be no part 2. All I can say is that the biggest flaw of the movie is probably the hype. I think it's the hype. I think a lot of the fans behind Spider-Man and just comic book movies in general are blowing this up to be the greatest film of all time ever made. And it is a great story. It's a very personal story. And I enjoyed myself. Like I said, I was laughing along with the crowd. I was tearing up along with the crowd. It was a movie theater experience. And unfortunately, Zach, you are going to be waiting until it's streaming, which it's fair. It's totally valid. I'm not, kicking you for doing that.
Oh, my rib.
You're being safe. I am risking it all for movies. Fuck, I didn't mention French Dispatch. French Dispatch and Dune are fantastic. Timothy Chalamet all the way. 2022, baby, for president. Timothy Chalamet. And Pig.
Maybe President at 5?
Yeah. I don't know. Is he Canadian? Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. This has been Lights, Camera, Nonsense. Part 1 of our review of 2021. Zach, we have only so much time in the world. We're going to start recapping the TV shows that we watched that came out in 2021. Are you excited?
I am excited. I actually watched some pretty good TV this past year.
I did too. And I'm excited to dive into that with you. Hopefully you are too. Hopefully you're subscribed. Hopefully you're following us on whatever social media we're on. We are on Twitter. We're on Instagram. We're on TikTok. Just type in Lights, Camera, Nonsense into your favorite search engine, like Mozilla Firefox or Internet Explorer. Or
yeah, those are your 2 options.
So the only 2 options. And you will find us. But this has been Lights, Camera, Nonsense, keeping you updated despite our best efforts. Make sure to tune in for all the latest news, reviews, and what else.
How do you do?
I missed that. Thanks for tuning in, and we will see you next time.
Bye.